This is really weird. 2 days ago, a TikTok user named Dustin Goodroad made this video about this physical book that he had found called King of the Jews, a novel of the Holocaust by Leslie Epstein. The original TikToker is pointing at the striking coincidence that a book named King of the Jews was written by Epstein about a protagonist named I.C. Trumpelman. This book, set during the Holocaust, is about a con man who pretends to be a doctor, leaves the ghetto, and then returns to lead it. This is Leslie Epstein, the author of that book. He was summa cum laude at Yale and a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford. From 1978, he taught a graduate creative writing class at Boston University. Some of his students went on to win Pulitzer Prizes. Epstein is one of the oldest Ashkenazi Jewish surnames. It derives from the small German town of Epstein in Hesse. These two men are identical. There is no denying that chin. Ashkenazi Jews emigrating to the United States used something called a Landsmannschaften, which was basically a mutual aid society, and they were organised by the town of origin. So if you were an Epstein from Epstein, you would join the Epstein Landmannschaft in New York. These societies provided loans, burial plots, jobs, and housing. It was a trust network. You showed up with the right name from the right town and doors opened for you. No credentials required. The community vouched for its own. Leslie Epstein's father was Philip Epstein, and he had a twin named Julius. And these two men were screenwriters in early Hollywood. That's Howard Koch. The Epstein twins wrote Casablanca. This is one of the most effective pieces of wartime propaganda ever made. It's a film about a man who runs a nightclub, and the club is a hub where intelligence operatives, refugees fleeing war, and resistance fighters meet and mix. The owner, Rick, has access to everyone. He's apparently neutral. And maintaining that position of nightclub neutrality is what gives him power over all sides. Epstein ran properties. He had his New York townhouse, his Zorro Ranch, and his Little James Island. These properties functioned as hubs where intelligence operatives, scientists, politicians, academics, and compromised individuals could all mix together. He's been seen with everyone from the Queen of England to Mother Teresa to the Prime Minister of Israel to US presidents. And in those circles, he maintained a position of apparent neutrality. Rick's Cafe describes the Epstein operation in 1942. Put these men beside each other and you tell me, do you see a family resemblance here? Let me tell you about the weird timeline. Shortly before the war, the United States government created the House of Un-American Activities Committee. This committee was established to investigate alleged disloyalty and subversive activities, including communist ties among private citizens. It became infamous for its investigations into Hollywood. The options facing anyone named by HUAC were brutal. In 1951, one of the committee's first witnesses, the actor Larry Parks, pleaded, "Don't present me with the choice of either being in contempt of this committee and going to jail, or forcing me to really crawl through the mud and be an informer." If you watched my video last week about a NOC, I explained that it is an intelligence acronym that stands for non-official cover. Official cover are those who hold diplomatic passports. If they accidentally get arrested, they have diplomatic immunity. But a NOC, a non-official, that's deep cover. They can never admit their connections to the agency. If they get arrested, if they get caught, they have to go to jail. After being called in front of this committee, Parks was blacklisted completely. He could not work in Hollywood again. In 1952, Jack Warner, one of the original Warner brothers, gave Philip Epstein's name to the HUAC. His explanation was, those boys are always on the side of the underdog, but that glosses over the fact that the people he named were all people he was in contractual disputes with. Less than a month after being asked to testify at this House committee, Philip Epstein dies randomly, and there's very little information about what happened. Some unverified online sources say that he got sick or that he got cancer, but no one ever checked the death cert. Somebody in California could go today and pay the $30 and get the death cert, and we could find out what it says. Given the hugeness of the Epstein case, it's amazing that nobody's done that. Possibly because they haven't yet connected these jawlines to each other. But I think we should find out what happened to Philip Epstein, because that's in 1952, right? Flip over to the East Coast, and a man who zero photographs exist of, named Seymour Epstein, marries a woman named Paula. Less than a couple of months after Philip Epstein dies, Seymour Epstein gets married in New York. Seymour Epstein is a person that did exist, and in 1941 they joined the army. Then there is an 11-year gap in any kind of public records to say that this person existed. He does not show back up on any records from 1941 to 1952 on the marriage certificate. That is a very odd anomaly. Paper tripping is a documented intelligence technique where a dead person's identity is repurposed for an undercover officer. The fact that Seymour Epstein went into the United States Army in 1941, just before the war, and is not seen on paper again until 1952 when he marries Paula, might suggest a repurposed identity. Do you think that these two men look like brothers with this as the father, or am I just being a conspiracy theorist? Let's go back to Casablanca for a second. During the filming of this movie, the OSS was physically in Casablanca. The OSS is the Office of Strategic Services. This was the wartime precursor to the CIA. If you've been keeping up on Epstein lore, you'll know he got his job in the Dalton School from Donald Barr. Donald Barr was an OSS officer. Warner Brothers is believed to have rushed the premiere of Casablanca to align with headlines on Operation Torch, a real war exercise. Then, the general release of this film was timed for January 1943, and it just happened to coincide with the Casablanca conference where Roosevelt and Churchill met in Casablanca to plan the next phase of the war. This movie was not a representation of war. It was the war. Literally. The extras in the famous La Marseillaise scene, where the Café Patreons drown out the officers singing, were actual Jewish refugees. Many of them in this scene are crying real tears because they are singing their national anthem in exile. Let's go back to this weird book that started it all. I. C. Trumpelman, written in 1979 by an Epstein. Here is the character description, word for word, from the publisher. A man whose fancy determines the fate of others. Check. Thrives on the power granted to him. Check. Creates an authoritarian regime of his own. Check. By turns a con man, charismatic leader, and merciless dictator. Check, check, check. The character's name is Trumpelman. The book is named King of the Jews. In August 2019, Trump quoted a conspiracy theorist who called him the King of Israel and said the Jewish people love him like he is the second coming of God. Is that a coincidence of language? Those are the exact phrases from this book. Donald Barr, the OSS officer who hired Epstein at Dalton, he also wrote a kind of weird book. His book is science fiction where a human diplomat becomes entangled with a feudal oligarchy that owns and sexually enslaves human captives. So the guy, the spy who gave Epstein his start, wrote a book about an aristocratic network that uses sexual slavery for political power. Tell me in the comments, what do you think the intelligence purpose of these weird books actually is? Do you think Epstein was a lone node or part of a bigger family dynasty?